Yes, but I do want to hear all about Grandpa and his antics and all of, the memories you have. Because when I think of memories of Grandpa, I can recall, I remember um, just like playing in the living room and making him laugh. Just little innocuous things like that. Um, I remember just coming to visit. I remember him giving me big bear hugs. But I was so little, like I don't remember specific conversations or specific places we went together. So, I was excited about tonight.
Well, we have pictures where he would always get down on the floor with you. We have pictures of you riding on his back. But I wanted to put this in. He worked very, very hard. He was very smart. He was very hard. And when we moved to California and we owned a few businesses, but he wasn't really settled in anything. He was born to be an executive.
Yeah,
He
it sounds like
started
it.
out as temporary in the postal service, and he went from mail carrier to director. Mail
Wow.
carrier to when they first came out to with the letter sorting machines, and then he really wanted customer service representative, and he was very good at that. Then postmaster, and then he went to director. Well, like I said, he was he worked very, very hard. When he got to be director, they started sending him out a lot of different places. Now, he was okay if it was only one night, even if it was in Los Angeles. He didn't really like it. But if he had to be away for more than one night, he wanted me to be with him. And they sent him from San Diego to Sacramento to Phoenix to Provo, Utah to Seattle to Hawaii. So you may wonder, one salary, 6 kids, how did we manage for me to go along with him? Well, I will tell you, and it's all
Yeah.
perfectly legal. He was given transportation. Now, they gave him a choice. Do you want to fly? We will make your reservations for you. If you want to take your own car, you will get this amount of money. So he would, except for Hawaii and a couple of times to Utah and a couple of times to Seattle, Washington, he always chose the car because they were paying him a flat rate, and it didn't make any difference if I was in the car. He was still getting the whole amount. And we didn't have to pay extra for me. With the hotels, the government paid for the hotels. The hotels didn't care if I came along. All I was to them was a little extra water for the showers, and other than that. Now, plus on top of that, he got a per diem for food. Well, we would generally put up in very nice hotels. Some of them I would even rate as posh. And most of them had continental breakfast, and sometimes it was a small, a bagel or a muffin, a rolled coffee, fruit, something like that. And sometimes it was more like a buffet. And that came with the room. We stayed in one place in La Jolla, and they had continental breakfast set up on every floor. We didn't have to go down to the lobby or the dining room to have it. That was the first hotel we ever went to that had key cards for the rooms. So
Wow.
this was a while ago. So we would go and we'd have breakfast there, and I would always take an apple, an orange, or banana with me for a snack for later. And then lots of times they would serve them another breakfast, coffee and muffins or donuts or something like that. And then they almost always provided lunch. Well, when we went to places where we had the car, I would just go out and I would just go pick up something for lunch. And that left us the whole, what they gave him for 3 meals for one person was really ample for dinner for two in the evening. So we didn't spend a lot of money on that, except like I said, when we went to Hawaii, but we extended that into a vacation. The hotel just charged just the government rate for the extra days, and we stayed on for a little extra time. When we went to the extended time where he had to go, he was sent to clean up, help out the post office in Provo, and then again in Seattle. And I don't remember what it was, whether they were putting in a new system or just starting all over again because there was something wrong going on. Then we had a hotel unit that had a kitchen. And of course, he was paid the per diem there too. But when you're shopping and cooking, it's always cheaper than eating out. So we only ate out on the weekends. So I wanted to tell you a couple of little incidents that he said were the best times.
Okay.
Okay, so the first time we went up to Provo, we drove because we were bringing a lot of stuff. See, I was like his entertainment director, tour guide, and my favorite thing was the book you got from the Auto Club that told you things to see. And he would leave it up to me to think of things to do with either in the evenings, but not too much in the evenings during the week, but on the weekends. And we would go sightseeing. Sometimes he was like a little kid. Well, I'll go, but I'm not going to like it.
Right.
And then he was surprised if he did like it. If he didn't like it, he would say so. But so anyhow, so here I am, he's at work. I'm in the motel, putting on things and making, I would bring things from home, Nest, so it would be comfortable for him when he got in. And we had TV, but I was listening to the radio and trying different stations. And I found one I liked with a disc jockey who played pop music. And he was the kind that did a call in every day, and he had a prize of the day. I've won 3 of those in my life. One I had and I'll tell you about that some other time. I had to write something and send it in, and I won a transistor radio. And the other time I won a script for gasoline for the car. So he says, I'm not going to tell you what this is, and but we got a good prize. So I'm listening. Now, you know how these things work. When they say, we'll be back with our contest right after this message from our sponsors. Well, then you start dialing, but you don't dial the last number. As soon as you hear the question, if you know, you put the last number in it, and that increases your chance of being the first one. And I won.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I was so excited. And he said, so he's talking to me, and I was telling him that we hadn't been there. He says, so you won dinner for 2 at the Rolling Stone and a show. And I thought, wow, we're going out for dinner. We're going to see a show. He said, did you ever hear of it? I said, no, we've only been here. This is 3 days or something like that. He says, oh, you're going to love it, but you have to come down to the station and pick up your vouchers, your tickets for tonight. And it's no problem. We'll manage and everything. So we hung up. He said, nice talking to you. Hung up, and I called your dad. And so I think I went to the station by myself. And the lady, the receptionist there, was so nice. She was just so sweet. And oh yeah, you're the lady from out of town, and you ever hear about this? And I said, no. She says, well, it's not hard to find. I said, no problem. We'll find it. So he comes home, and he just like changed his shirt and left his suit that he wore that day. And I just put on a dress because I didn't know how fancy was going to be there. So we get there, and it's really close to BYU. Turns out a campus hangout. The Rolling Stone was scones is what they called what is like a pot pie. Well, the food was really good, but it wasn't fancy or anything like that. And you ready? The show was open mic night
Oh,
downstairs.
no way.
Okay, so while we're there and we're talking, the waitress was a student from BYU, friendly, nice, and she's talking, where are you from? Oh, we're from New York. Oh, and we live in California now, but we still have connections, Becky, meaning relatives, you know. Oh, that's so nice. How are you far from Los Angeles? No, we're like an hour away, but we like where we are because it's an hour to the beach and an hour to the mountains, and we can get into LA really quick from where we are. Oh, sure, we're talking. So we go down there. So the show is these kids, college students that came back every week. So they'd go and then their friends would show up and they would critique them and they would start new routines. And the most risque thing, not like some comedy clubs, like in the comedy club or in Las Vegas, was these two guys who wrote songs and they played their guitars. And one of the lines in the song was, I came back from my mission and my family and friends had all these girls for me to meet. And I said to her, hi, how are you? What's your ring size? So that was like an in joke with a
Right.
and all. So anyhow, we left, and the owner or manager was saying, "Would you folks have a good time?" And oh yeah, see anybody like? Well, they're all nice, but you know they need a little seasoning. But you know it's really good. We get outside, and your dad and your grandpa says, "You know, they thought we were talent scouts." And
Oh, because you weren't
because
students, you were well dressed.
yeah, everybody else was in jeans, the shirt sleeves rolled up and stuff like that. He got the biggest kick. I thought when I had said to him, "Oh, we're going out for dinner and a show," that he thought we were going to see something really big. So anyhow, that
Right.
he talked about that every now and then we'd see a comedian. And he goes, "What do you think? How you know how it was like our little joke." How we dragged them, and I say, "Oh, he needs a little seasoning, something." Okay, so he was, and this is in Provo was I would stay with him, and then I'd go home and stay with the kids. The kids were all big at the time. Then I'd go back and stay there. So I had one other places to do. One we went to see was Donnie and Marie Osmond's recording studio,
Yeah, if you're in
and
Utah,
we
you
took
got to see
this,
that.
but it was closed. There was nothing there. They have not like a walk of with the stars in like in Hollywood, but they had people press their hands into concrete slabs and they hung those on a wall. But it was just one of the things. But I could tell the other places that we went at the time. The two other things, one we both remember these a lot. Okay, so we get to Seattle, and we had another nice little apartment overlooking Union Lake. And people come home from work and bing, everybody's got their boat out on the lake. It was beautiful. We just sat on our balcony and watched it. So it was his birthday. Soon as we got there, I called the restaurant on the Space Needle and I said, we've just come up here. We're going to be here for my husband's birthday. And I told them what I wanted. They were just as nice and agreeable as can be. I said, I want to bring my husband for dinner. Now, the restaurant at the top of the Space Needle rotates. It takes 1 hour to go completely around. So when you get up there and you sit down, you don't even feel it's moving. And people were making a fuss over him that it was his birthday. I don't remember what we ate. I think it was prime rib. And we just sat there, and they have it so that they're not rushing you exactly, but like when you order something, it comes right away. And you sit there until you go back. So we do that. An hour later, we turned around. We were back where we started, and we were facing west, and the sun was sinking, was just setting over the ocean. It was absolutely beautiful. And he said that was the best birthday he ever had. He liked that.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. Now I have one or two scrapbooks full of photographs of places we were there. But I gotta tell you, this one place we went to, they have a canal leading from the ocean so that people can take their boats like from Union Lake out to the ocean and then back in again. They also have salmon steps for the salmons to swim upriver. And they have a wall and glass, and you could actually look through the glass window and watch the salmon. Well, Chris, he was like a little kid. I wasn't sure he was gonna like it. It was just like something to do. He was where are you? What are you doing over there? You can't stand on that. You can't stand on the lock when the gates are opening and closing. He goes, look over there. You missed it. There was a salmon that jumped out of the water like that. He was going back and forth. The locks would fill up. The boat would come in. The water would drop down or up. Either way it was going, the boat would go. He was going crazy. He was more excited about that when we went to the Panama Canal, which is slower because you got this big boat and all. Here these things were happening. And the boats would come in and they'd go against one wall and they would toss the rope to somebody else. So all the boats were like huddled together. And then they either rose or they sank, and then it would open and then they would let go. And then they would just go either to the lake or to that. He was running. He said that was the best time. He really, really, really had a lot of fun.
Wow.
So sometimes, and it was, of course, it was good for him to relax. We did a lot of things. The other one was, I believe it was a Saturday or a Sunday. There's a place called Snoqualmie Falls. There's a restaurant at the top overlooking the falls that, falls fall down. As you drive up there, and it was cloudy, you really couldn't see Mount Rainier, but it was the color changing time for the leaves, and they were gorgeous. People go to New England to see and Canada to see the leaves. This was absolutely gorgeous. And you can go, look at that yellow over there. Look, do you see the red? I said, well, we can stop on the way back and we'll take pictures. So we get up to the restaurant, and it wasn't a buffet. What they did was they had a set menu, and they just kept giving you one course after the other. If you didn't want it, if you didn't like bacon, you didn't have bacon. If you didn't want sausage or whatever, but they just kept bringing you more and more food. Now, I think it must still be open because Winco carries Snoqualmie Falls pancake mix. And there's a picture on it of the restaurant at the top and the falls down below. And the thing they have there is when they bring you pancakes, they ask you if you'd like syrup. And the waitress holds her arm up as high as she can and pours the syrup down onto the pancakes, and that represents the falls.
Ah.
So I know it's a touristy thing, but he really liked that too. When we got done, we climbed to the bottom of the falls. There was a trail. We have pictures of me sitting there next to the pool or pond at the bottom with big holes in my stocking from tripping over roots of trees and branches and rocks like that. But again, he was like a little kid. Then once we got done, we had to climb back up, but it wasn't steep. And they had places where they had carved logs to make steps, to make it easy to go up. So he worked very hard, but on the weekend, you could find something he likes, and he would and he would have fun. One other thing was, and it didn't happen while we were away, there used to be a restaurant where they did King Henry VIII's feast. And you would go there and there'd be the whole cast in costumes. And I think they had a jester and a Lord of Misrule, and they had rules. Somebody would yell out wassail, and everybody had to take their tankard and go on the round and round on the table and yell wassail. And if you didn't do all these things that you were supposed to do, you had to pay a penalty. Now, I think I remember Unc had to get, he either had to get up and sing or he had to kiss one of the wenches.
Oh, I
He
can't
says he-
picture that.
We didn't take cameras. Then we didn't have phones, of course, and I don't think they allowed you to take cameras. But he says he doesn't remember, but maybe if I talk to him again, he will bring that. It was one of those things that he wasn't sure he was going to enjoy, but once he got into it, he did. Because it was the same thing with dinner theaters. First time I took him into a dinner theater, then we went all the time. We went to every dinner theater all the way down to San Clemente and Anaheim. So anyhow, so he did have fun, and he could, just let himself go sometime.
That's great. I love it.
So what else would you like to hear about?
Oh, well, I mean, I think one thing that's highly relevant to our family is I want to hear, I've only heard like the really brief one sentence version of the story of how you discovered General Tao's chicken for the first time.
Okay. Uncle and your great grandma and your dad and I went on vacation by ourselves. We did back-to-back cruises, short little cruises. It was the old Disney ship, where we went to Gilligan's Island and spent the day there, and another one. And now I have the books, and we went to Cape Canaveral, which was really good. And we went to Disneyland and Epcot Center. So we were out one night and we were looking for a restaurant. And you know what it is? Sometimes you have more than two people or even two people. Where do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? It was like
Right.
that. But here were four of us. We were tired from being out all day. And we're driving around Orlando, and let me tell you, like, restaurant, at least one restaurant on every street. But there was one pretty one. And I said, Chinese, come on, let's go for Chinese. Now, when your grandpa and I first started dating, we went to a Chinese restaurant. He ordered fried veal cutlets. He never ate Chinese food.
Mhm.
And I guess he had been there before, maybe with the grandma and grandpa, and I don't know if anybody else ate Chinese food. But I didn't want it. I liked Charmaine, but I was determined I was going to start eating everything. So every time we went there, I would order something different, and I would offer him some, and he started tasting it and decided Chinese food wasn't that bad, and he liked it. But we went to this restaurant, and it was really beautiful inside. They had a koi pond in the center of like an atrium with a little bridge over it and the fish. Some restaurants you go to, and they'll have a little fish pond in the foyer.
Right.
But this was just beautiful, really decorated, and it was quiet, and there was low music, and I was determined again to try something new. And that's the first time was Orlando, Florida, at a Chinese restaurant that we had General Tao. We didn't have it again for years. And then you remember our favorite one here in Diamond Bar.
Eastern Garden. Yeah,
Eastern Gardens, yeah.
yeah, we were all obsessed with it for years.
Oh, I know. That was like our favorite Sunday. We had to go at
Oh,
least once a month. Oh, no.
absolutely. General Tao wasn't on the buffet line, but we always made sure to have at least two orders on the table.
Yes, we did because everybody liked it. And remember how they would give us an extra dish of sauce
Oh, yes.
to make sure there was enough to go around.
Hmm.
We really meant that. And we haven't had good General Tao ever since then.
I
We've
know.
tried frozen, we've tried recipes, and there was one that was sort of close. And believe it or not, it was an envelope.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And I think you had to add water, and then you did your vegetables and your chicken.
I know
But
to this day, we're still looking for, we're still chasing that dragon, looking for General Tao that matches what we remember from Eastern Garden. I'm definitely not finding it in Las Vegas.
this Sunday's newspaper, and I saved this section, says the buffets are opening again.
They
And
are.
I think Caesar's served 11,000 people.
Wow.
I could read a bit. Anyhow, it was.
I might wait a little bit longer before I jump into that feeding frenzy.
We're still not going into restaurants. We're still ordering and bringing it home.
Yeah,
But I
that's
think
good.
we're almost ready to do that.
If
One
we
thing,
do,
when the kids were little, there was a place called Abel's Mexican Buffet, and we
wow,
used to go there occasionally. And they made the best Mexican food, and it was like a treat for us to go. It's the same thing, with 6 kids, you didn't take them to fancy restaurants. It was the Great Wall of China, maybe, on occasion, something
sure.
like that.
Hey, I mean, you give me a good Mexican buffet, I'm in. I mean, I miss the Acapulco buffet they would do on Sundays. It was so good.
It was very good. Then El Torito wasn't bad. Steve gave a birthday party for Stevie like 3 years ago at El Torito. And we went to the one by the 10 in West Covina.
No,
And
right.
it was really nice. It was crowded. Okay, this reminds me of another story.
Hey,
So we were in Hawaii. So he had his conference, and I had my book, and I planned what we were going to do. One day, I planned a clockwise tour of the island. We rented a car, and we went to Hilo Hattie's. We went to the Joel plantation. We went, but he wasn't interested. We just drove through the parking lot of that famous surfing beach. I can't think of the name of it now. Then we went to another place where they had people diving off the rocks into a pool, a natural pool of water, bigger than a pond, like that. We
yeah,
spent the day in the evening at the cultural center, which is run by the Mormon Church. It was fantastic. And to this day, I'm so sorry we didn't stay a day longer in Hawaii so we could have done that too. And because I always thought, well, we'll go back to Hawaii some other time. It started off with the people from the different Polynesian islands coming in their native dress, in their canoes, outriggers, or whatever, because this is a big place. And they all came in. Then you had the day to spend going to like each island group, and they would show you how they made their cloth. Another place gave us tastes of poi. Then in the evening, they had this great big outdoor amphitheater, and they had this fantastic stage show where they did the dances, and people think, cool, well, there are so many different kinds. And
Right.
each island group came on and did their dance. It was absolutely fantastic. But we spent another day there. So we were looking for something to eat. And what should we find but an Italian buffet? And believe it or not, there were a lot of people there, but they weren't
Wow.
all, they were Hawaiian people too. Well, your grandpa was so happy that
It would
he
be.
could have something uh, red, because he
Yeah.
like, you could give him anything. If you poured your spaghetti sauce on top, he would eat anything that
Same.
was in there. He probably would have eaten goat and not known what it was. So here we are, like downtown Honolulu, and instead of traditional food, we were eating food. He was very content with that. Although we did go another morning to uh, a, one of the big hotels had a buffet breakfast. Then we took the plane, and I think it was a propeller plane, to Maui for one day, and we rented a car there. We started off, I believe it was on the west side of the island, but there wasn't much to see because people go there for the beaches mostly. But then we went to the other side where they have like national forests, and you look through a telescope and that rock looks like Abraham Lincoln, and another one looks like something else. And so he relaxed and he enjoyed that too. And then we took the plane back to Honolulu.
I think I must get my travel anxiety from Grandpa. So I was thinking, even going up to Big Bear, like I was dreading the trip. I didn't really want to do anything. And then, of course, once we got up there and started doing stuff, I had a blast. So I feel a little
Yeah,
less alone now.
yeah. He was, well, all right, you say this is going to be fun, but I'm not sure it's going to be fun.
Right.
But like then sometimes he would okay, when we took our 25th anniversary cruise, we flew to New York and changed planes and flew to Milan. And then we took a train to Genoa, and we got on the cruise ship in Genoa. And we went through the Straits of Gibraltar, and we went to the Canary Islands, and we went to Mallorca and Malaga. And we had a really nice time. It was an Italian ship. Well, they put out this buffet lunch. They called it Trattoria del Sol because they had it on one of the upper decks. Like 16 kinds of salami and hams, and
Wow.
it was beautiful. It was the Costa line. Even for lunch, you have salad and soup and pasta. It was always pasta before the meal. We just like ate and ate. And then they had the midnight buffet again. But sometimes we stayed up and just looked at it and didn't go. But one of the places we went to, they had these sleds made out of cane, like not a bamboo, I don't know what kind of osier, whatever it was. And you got in, and the men pushed you over the cobblestones down the hill. We tried to, Grandma didn't want to do it. We have a picture of her getting off at the bottom of the hill. You've got to, sometime you got to come and stay long enough to look at some of these pictures.
Oh my God, I'm dying to see them.
Uncle got sick in the Canary Islands up at the top of the mountain. We think there had been another busload of tourists first, and we came in and they had the tables already set up with potato salad. Now, lots of times you go someplace, I like to try regular tropical food, whatever, the people there eat. They think Americans want to eat American food. Unc got sick on the boat, but the doctor gave him something, fixed him up right away. And but he was the only one. I don't remember whether we all ate ours or not, but that was a very good trip. That was a fun trip too. One of the places, I guess it was this, whatever the Spanish island was, they took us to a bull ring. There was no bullfight that day, but they let us swirl the capes around like we were bullfighters. So I would love you to see these pictures.
Oh, me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, your grandpa was relaxed most of the time, and the custom was very good. One night they had a famous opera singer there, and then they had they didn't have, it was a small cruise ship, not like they are now, so they didn't have a Broadway production, but they had a nice show every night. And this one couple, the dancers, did every night they did a different region of Spain, from flamenco to all the other kinds of dances that they did.
That sounds like fun.
It was. Epcot Center was fun. Cape
Yeah,
Canaveral was fun. And then we took that one big 2-week cruise on the Fairwind when my niece Geraldine came. My mother was supposed to come, and then she wasn't feeling well, so she gave her ticket to Geraldine, and we had a great time. We went to the Panama Canal. We didn't go through the whole thing, which I always wanted to do. We went into Gatun Lake and turned around, and then came back out. So it was the experience. It was very nice. And then we went to Cartagena. So we go to Cartagena, right? We're in Colombia. And they said, here's your landing slip, hang on to it. So we all go, and we took a tour, and we went up to the fort. Almost every place you go in the Caribbean, South America, if it's a port, it has a fort up on the hill to defend, and they still have a lot of time, the old cannons and stuff there. And we went to the cathedral, and we're on our way back, and we're walking down the pier to get back to the ship, and they said, have your boarding passes ready. And the soldiers were there with machine guns, and your grandpa can't find his boarding pass.
no.
Oh, yeah. We were going crazy. I don't remember whether he had, JR or Bunny could probably tell you, was either in his pocket or in his camera case. He had it, but he didn't remember where he put it. And that was like a tense moment. Very.
Wow. Now, I had always heard that when my dad was about, I think, 17, you and Grandpa were on vacation, I think in England, when my dad's appendix burst. Do you remember that ordeal?
I do remember that. We were almost on our way home. We were in New York because Sandra came to meet, and nobody told me. I was so mad at them, but JR handled everything. They got him to the hospital right away, and naturally they had to operate. What happened was it had turned to wood. That's the way they described it.
Wow.
It was so inflamed and whatever. And they had to put a drain in, and even after he was left at home, that was in there. He didn't even say anything, but JR saw him walking, and he was holding on to the tables in the back of the chairs, and he was all bent over. And then he told her, and I don't remember if it was 17, and that had to be probably, it wasn't England, because Uncle and Grandma didn't go to England. That was later on. We took Bunny and JR to England. So that had to be 1979 when we were coming back from our Mediterranean cruise, where
Mm.
we flew to New York, and then we had to get another plane and come back. One other funny thing, when we were going there, and we flew to Milan, and we spent one night in a hotel in Milan, and the next day we got the cruise ship. So we went out walking. Everything was closed. People were closed, but they were going to the zoo. So we went walking through the Galleria. I believe it was Galleria Victor Emmanuel. And we were lucky that they let us into La Scala, which was at one end. We got to see the Duomo, which is the cathedral, and it's looked like a wedding cake, made one of the most beautiful cathedrals ever. Now, some friends of ours went year before last, and now it's all banners and posters and grandstands built up around it, and it's a venue for shows and stuff. We did get to see the Mona Lisa, not the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper. The Mona Lisa I saw in Paris. So we asked a concierge, and he called us at the hotel, and he got us a taxi, and he took us there. We were like the only ones. Nowadays, you have to make a reservation to get a ticket, and they only let a few people in. They let us get like practically within touching distance. But it's one of those things where it's good to get up close, and you could see where they pointed out this was tried to be restored here, and somebody tried to restore it over here, and they used something else here. But when you first see it far away, and it's not that far, it's one hallway, one dining room away. And then you see it up close. Sometimes it's better to stand back a little bit because you could see the whole thing than see it up close. So then we went back, we got another taxi, and we went back to the square and by the cathedral and the gallery, and we were waiting for a restaurant to open. So a restaurant opened, it turned out to be a buffet. So we go upstairs, and we're looking, and we're watching the other people. People were taking their dish, and they were going out and helping themselves. Then they were taking their dirty dishes and putting it in the little tray thing, and then they were taking some more. So I'm up there, and I'm looking, and I didn't speak Italian, and the man who was serving behind the counter didn't speak English. So I said to him, "What is that?" And made the gesture, and he goes, "Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit." It was frog legs. We communicated.
There you go.
It was very good. The first time I ever had squash ravioli, but they were fresh made. They were still making them. They would make a batch and cook them, and immediately start making another batch. Everything was absolutely fresh.
Sounds great.
It's one thing I always liked about Italy. You can't, the food.
Have you watched Stanley Tucci's series on CNN about
Oh,
Italy?
yes.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, that is such a good, yes. I'd watch it again if they'd show it again, but they're not. Now they're back to the other night. What was it? The holiday, Monday?
Mhm.
They started with Downton Abbey from season 1, episode 1, which is good, but it's like, we know the dialogue now.
Right.
But I did watch Atlantic Crossing about the Princess Sophia from Norway came over to the United States during World War II, and she got, she might have had a romance with Franklin Roosevelt. And if she did, it was to get him to first Lend-Lease, and then gave Norway a battleship. She never got to be queen. She died 8 years after World War II. She had, her husband is King Olaf now, or was then, and then her son was Harold, and he was crown prince. It was a very, very good show.
Sounds interesting. Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Well, when a couple of years ago, when we had the anniversary of D-Day, remember how we used to go to the library and they'd have summer programs for
Yeah,
the
I
kids?
won a lot of free In-N-Out burgers.
Yeah, you read a lot of books.
Hmm.
Well, I always picked a theme for my summer reading too. And then when you kids were in there for the program or whatever, and I would get some books. So for the anniversary of D-Day, I decided my summer reading program was going to be World War II, and I'm still reading. And
Wow.
yeah, because I said, what do I remember? What was Hollywood? What was the newspaper propaganda? We had a lot of propaganda, but the Nazis were like top of the field as far as propaganda went. The
Mhm.
people there didn't know what was going on. And I'm still reading, and I keep finding new books and new books.
The Hollywood side of it is kind of interesting. You read about people like Jimmy Stewart who gave up their lucrative careers and went and fought, and then, went back to Hollywood and really didn't feel even right going back into movies.
Clark Gable too.
Yeah.
There were a lot of them, and of course, Glenn Miller lost his life. His plane went down over the English Channel, and I never realized at the time the big band era died during World War II, as popular as it was, because they had buses. All the bands had a bus, and they would go from like college to college, or well, with gas rationing, they couldn't do that anymore. So
Mm.
they weren't as popular. A lot of them went into the movies, but
Oh,
the Stones are still standard.
absolutely. All right. Well, I better get to bed, but this has been just so interesting as always. Thank you so much.
Well, I thought, I don't know what you remember. I know we took you to Grandpa's office, and we have a picture of you behind the desk. And I don't know if you knew when he died. See, he had this big office. He also had his own conference room. And when he died, they put a plaque up in it and dedicated it to him.
Oh,
He
oh,
had he had such a huge funeral, even though he died on the 16th of December, which was a very busy time. People left their office and came. A lot of them didn't stay. A lot of them didn't stay for the lunch we had at the Hyatt. And his pallbearers were all directors. And we got there, and they said, we had to hire, you know how they have the motorcycle escorts. They said, we have so many cars here, we had to hire another one. I said, of course you have to hire it. You have to hire it. So instead of the usual two, we had three, because it was just so many people turned out.
wow.
And your mom came, Debbie.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember hearing about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
She showed up at the church. I don't she didn't go to the cemetery though. A lot of people didn't go either. But
Mhm.
anyhow, so think about things you want to know. I'll think about if I can think of more anecdotes about your grandpa that showed, his other not serious side. And
Mhm.
but those were the things that stuck up in my mind, because those were the things he liked. He got such a kick out of being mistaken for a talent scout.
All righty. Well, thank you so much.
Kiss the girls for me.
I will.
And it's so great talking to you, Chris.
You too. I'm really looking forward to these every week.
Okay. I'm
All
looking
right.
for sometime you could come down. We'll just spend the whole day in the house looking at photo albums.
Okay, that sounds awesome. All right.
Okay,
Well,
honey.
you have a good night.
You too, sweetheart. Good
All
night,
right.
and I love you so much.
Love you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Good night, babe.